Hi lovelies and welcome on my channel. My name is Bex and I've been a practicing secular witch for 17 years, and today I want to share with you how to write a spell. And I'm gonna give you my personal tips and tricks on how you can create your own spells or rituals, and I do think there are a couple of points in here that you might not have heard or thought of before. So I do hope this is a helpful video to witchcraft beginners as well as advanced practitioners. This video is a collaboration with the wonderful Sarah, otherwise known as the itty bitty Celtic witch, and she will in her video tell you more about how to create a green witch spell, and we'll look into that a little bit later on in this video. But now let's get started with the basics. In order to learn how to write a spell, we first want to know what a spell actually is and what the difference between a spell and a ritual might be. So a spell is a petition or request for a specific topic or desire, and it usually carries an intention, so something that you want. A ritual, on the other hand, does not necessarily need an intention. A ritual is usually more structured and a little bit bigger. It can be, it doesn't have to be. And a spell is just a little bit more directed towards a certain outcome. Now, not every witch uses spells often or at all for some kinds of witchcraft, and there are many different forms on how you can actually cast a spell, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Obviously, you can also find a lot of spells online or in spellbooks. However, in my personal practice and in my personal experience, I always found that I do love to create my own spells because they work better, they're more personalized to the goal I want to have, and I can custom tailor how much effort and energy I put in it and get out of it. So let me explain. Already the process of creating a spell does carry a lot of power and a lot of energies, because obviously you're going to research a couple of things. You're going to research correspondences of the ingredients used. You might want to see when exactly it's the best time for you to work that specific spell. And you're just gonna think a little bit more about the hows and whys of what you incorporate in that. And what I always find is that the longer I'm busy with a spell, the longer I actually sit down and craft it, the more powerful it gets. And I do think that is because the intention that I have in my mind while I'm creating that spell has more time to stew in my head and to develop and to actually manifest in my thoughts, and then the spell is just a little push that brings it over the edge, so to say. Now obviously there are also wonderful spells out there, and I think it's also great to take inspiration. However, I would never use a spell that I'm not super resonating with. If I just read a spell and I don't really feel a connection, or I don't feel like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I need to do, then I won't do it. Then I will either write my own spell, or I will take elements of it and change it into something that's more personal to me. Now, of course, first you need to know what you want your spell to do. You need to have the intention. And in order to do so, you want to boil it down. Personally, I find it is always good to make a spell not too broad and not too specific. And I'll explain what I mean with that. For example, you're very broke at the moment and you desperately need money. Maybe you don't have a job at the moment and a crisis and whatever. Now you could obviously do a money spell, right? That might work or it might not. What you could do is to sit down and really think, so what do I need in the future to get out of that hustle and struggle of being broke and having this repetitive struggle for money? I probably want a job, or a better paying job. So that's just basically boiling it down to the essence of what you need to do in the mundane in order to achieve that goal that you want to have with a spell. So now your spell could be focused on finding a job or finding a better paying job, right? But maybe you have this wild dream and you want to make your first millions by selling hand-knitted hats for mice. You know, it could also be something like a position that you want in a certain company for a certain job. That just might be a bit too direct. You know, you don't give the spell space to breathe and to work in its mysterious ways. That's my own experience, so I try to find a middle path between specific enough but not too specific. Same would go, for example, weight loss spells. If you do a weight loss spell, give it some time, give it some grace. Don't be like, I'm going to make myself 5 kilos lighter by tomorrow morning. Poof! Doesn't work. What might work is doing a spell where you focus on weight loss, but you don't give it that much of a time frame or value to it. Another thing very important to keep in mind is to keep your spells realistic. Magic is not a wonder weapon. It doesn't grant you just any wish. You can't just do a spell and tomorrow win the lottery, otherwise there would be a ton of very rich witches in this world. And there might be a few, but not a lot. And probably not because of magic, but because of other reasons. As you always want to level your mundane efforts with your magic intents, it should be something that you can achieve with mundane efforts as well. So keep that in mind when doing a spell. For example, if I'm doing a love spell on Channing Tatum, chances of him falling madly in love with me, does he have a partner? I don't know. Doesn't matter. It will never happen. You know, keep it realistic. What you next want to do is to choose a method of how you want to work your spell. And there are multiple methods out there that you can do. You can use sigil magic, candle magic, you can use pen and paper, you can use scripting, you can use kitchen witchery, you can use green witchcraft. And for that you can check the other video on Sarah's channel. You could do elemental magic, you could do nature magic. There are so many options out there. Just choose one that resonates with you and that you feel fits the spell and the purpose. So when speaking about intention, we usually also use a phrase or a sentence, a spell. We're spelling out what we want. So we're using words in order to describe what we wish for. And it's actually a quite free form that you can choose. Now, a lot of spells that we read rhyme, and the reason behind this is, first of all, they're very easy to remember, kind of like a song that you hear all the time that will stick in your head, which does help with intention setting and manifesting, because the spell will stick in your mind. Personally, I really don't like rhyming spells because for me they just feel a little bit fiction-ish. So I usually just use regular sentences. And when you do the spell, you can speak the spell out loud, but you don't have to. I personally say it in my head, and for me it works too. For other people, however, it does work if they say it out loud. It makes it more real, and it does give it an extra little boost of energy. I did read that some people are concerned when they take spells out of spellbooks that are maybe written in another language than they're originally speaking. It doesn't really matter in which language you do the spell, as long as you can connect and bond with it. Like, it should probably be a language that you understand, so you can really connect to the words, or at least you should know what it means. As long as you feel it in your heart, as long as you can feel the words, you're fine. But if you want to take a spell off the internet or off a book, you can always rewrite it in your own words. Now, how you word a spell is also dependent on your language. For example, in English, I read a lot of "so mote it be" and stuff like that behind spells, which basically just means like, so it will happen. So you're basically telling the spell that it will happen. Personally, I do like to work with the law of attraction, and I've seen this in many other spells. So a spell will typically, or most of the times, be worded in a positive way and as if it was already true. This is also actually very important for your mind and for your motivation, because it gives your mind that little positive kick of energy, and it also makes it easier to visualize the outcome of the spell. If you're imagining in your head, it already has become true, you already get all those positive feelings in, it will boost that spell, it will boost your motivation to work towards your goals as well. Let's say you want to do a spell on a test you have in school and you really want to succeed. You can word the spell as, "I have passed the test." Easy as that. Now, after choosing the method that you want to have, you want to gather the ingredients that you want to have. Or you want to research the certain correspondences that might come into play when doing a spell. So what I mean with that is that, for example, if you do a green witch spell, you want to probably gather some herbs, because you will do some form of herbal magic. And we know that herbs have certain correspondences, magic correspondences. However, this is a quick reminder that correspondences are not set in stone. Correspondences actually really vary on your culture, on your background, on your beliefs, on your personal experience, and on history. If you want to know more about what actually can come into play when thinking about correspondences of herbs or crystals or days or colors, I would advise you to head over to Sarah's channel, because she's talking about that in greater detail there. What you could keep in mind though when planning your spell is, for example, a certain day of the week that has a special meaning for you, or that has some certain correspondences to energies to you, a moon phase, herbs you use, crystals you use, colors you use, astrological constellations at the moment. You could also think about if you wanted to involve any deities in your spell, and you can also think about if you want to work with any kind of elemental energies. I did link you a very nice video about the elements down below from Megan Black, Round the Cauldron, that I can also very much recommend. Other things that also can carry correspondence is, for example, scents, seasons or holidays. And as I said before, you can put as much or as little effort into this as you want. Personally, if it's a bigger thing that I'm hoping for to gain with that spell, I will invest some time in actually playing around with those things and invest some more energy in how I write my spell. Now you can also make your spell a little bit more personal by involving things that just hold personal meaning for you. For example, performing it on a certain spot that is very important to you, or by incorporating items of your personal belongings that just fit within the intention and with what you're working with. Now, when doing a spell, and especially when following spell inspiration of the internet or of books, and it comes to the things you use, I always advise to use the things that are available to you or that you have. You can really use very simple things in spell: pen and paper, household items, things that you have in your kitchen, like herbs that you have in your kitchen cabinets. It doesn't need to be fancy, and with most ingredients you can actually replace them. You don't have to spend a lot of money on exotic raisins or herbs, or buy a bunch of candles just because the spell says you need 12 green candles, and you know, probably one will do too. Like, you just have to work with it a little bit here. So if you write your own spell, you can also make it very budget friendly, which is a big plus. Now, something that I personally do, and I haven't heard this tip necessarily anywhere else before, is that I love to incorporate science in my magic. I do work a lot of green witch spells or herbal magic or kitchen magic, so I use a lot of spices. And when I do use a spell, I will match the herbs not only to their magical correspondence, but I will also look into their medicinal benefits. If there is actually something in there that would aid my spell. For example, if I'm doing a spell to be less nervous in a certain situation, I will incorporate herbs that are actually calming on the nervous system and on my mood and my mind. And then I will make sure that the spell somehow involves me carrying them close so I can smell them. And I can actually also work on my senses. As I'm having a background in psychology, I also love to involve psychology into it. I will link you my self-love spell up here that does have some elements of psychologically proven methods for self-confidence in it, but also obviously has all the magic and all the jazz. You can do this with any kind of science. It doesn't only have to be herbs or psychology. Just find your path and what speaks to you and what you want to incorporate into this, if you want to incorporate it. Now, as I said before, it is important that the spell resonates with you and that it resonates with your beliefs. For example, if you come from a Wiccan background, I do believe that a lot of people from the Wiccan path do believe in the threefold law, meaning that everything you get out there will come back to you in threefold. So that is also the reason why a lot of Wiccans don't do any spells that are negative towards other people. Obviously, if you're not following that path or if you don't believe in that, you can totally disregard that rule and basically do whatever you want. Now, if you're, for example, a secular witch like me, you might probably not work with deities. So if you find a spell somewhere or you take spell inspiration that involves a deity, like let's say you want to do some kind of relationship spell for your partner and yourself, and that spell would incorporate Venus in some way, and you just don't believe in any deities or work with any deities, you might want to leave that out. So just make sure that the spell really resonates with your own beliefs and with who you are as a witch. Now, a very important thing to keep in mind when learning how to write a spell, in my opinion, is actually to check your mundane efforts. A spell is great to do, but it won't do much on its own if you don't put in any effort. Let's take that example from before when I spoke about the test in school. If you skipped classes all year long, or you just haven't studied and you actually know nothing about the subject that you have the test on, and you write a spell, You can put as much effort as you want into that spell, you won't succeed. It just won't happen. A spell is only there to boost your efforts. It's there to give you that extra little kick, that extra bit of motivation and an extra push to achieve something. So you want to have your beliefs down on how you think magic works. If you can do spells for other people, if they only work if you do them for you, if you can do good spells, if you can do bad spells. Same things goes for spell when you want to change your appearance, for example. I had a comment the other day of someone asking a spell to make them smaller, which... sorry, I can't. I think no one can, unless you get that very expensive Russian... no, that was to get taller. Doesn't matter. Let's get back to topic. If you have some wishes for your appearance or you're not happy with how you look, it again comes to boiling down the issue, because you probably can't really change much about your appearance unless you're doing cosmetic surgery. But what you can change, for example, is your self-confidence on how you look at yourself. So you can do self-confidence spells, you can do self-love spells, or if you're, for example, unhappy with your weight, and you really want to change that, you can do weight loss spells or health spells and stuff like that. So just always see from which angle you can work that spell. So yeah, and basically once you have all of that gathered and all of that together, you can sit down, you can write your spell, you can perform your spell and do the work, and I wish you a wonderful outcome of whatever it is you're wishing for. And now if you want to learn more about green witch spells and how to write them, and also learn a little bit more about what to keep in mind with correspondences or what kind of green witch spells there actually are, you can go over to Sarah, the itty bitty Celtic witch, and see what she has to say. And I also prepared a little snippet of her video, a little teaser for you, so you can see what to expect. And here it is.
You can find information on the magical correspondences of different herbs to include in your green witch spell from a lot of different places. A good starting place can be magical correspondence books, books that are on kitchen witchcraft, green witchcraft, cottage witchcraft. There's a lot of different room and flexibility to draw on different resources to get some insight into the correspondences of different herbs. As well as this, oracle decks can also provide a really good opportunity to further explore some of the correspondence energy, particularly plant oracle books, herbal oracle books, tree oracle books. These guidebooks often have a lot of information and key phrases that can help get you started with working with the magical correspondence energy of a particular plant or herb for your spell. Then, to expand upon the correspondences you find in magical witchy books or in oracle decks, you can also look to history and mythology. So oftentimes in different myths, legends, folklore, there's a lot of information there included about different plants and their role in that myth. And this can add a further layer to your magical spell crafting.
Alright, so that was my take on how to write a spell. And next week I'll be back with a fantastic magical Thanksgiving feast recipe video and a beautifully crafty protection spell for hearth and home. Have a magical day and see you soon!